Tshabalala. I'm the chair of the African Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation, shortened APNIFFT. I am here today because we are launching the Kenya National Caucus, or the Kenya chapter of APNIFFT, because it's a continental network of serving and former members of parliament.
When you talk of illicit financial deficits, what do you mean? What do you understand by this?
When we talk of illicit financial flows, we talk about money that leaves this continent, whether legally or illegally, it shouldn't be living. So we are talking about tax avoidance and tax evasion. So they will tell you, oh, tax avoidance, we are just being smart. In South Africa, we normally say, it means I have an Indian legal advisor or accountant who knows better, so they can help me, So they say that's legal, but for us, it's a human rights issue. Whether it's legal, whether it's avoidance or evasion, it doesn't matter. We are saying that money shouldn't be leaving Africa. Because according to a study that was done, and the report came out in 2015 by United Nations Economic Commission on Africa, it's called the High-Level Panel on Illicit Financial Flows and Tax. It was chaired by Honorable Thabo Mbeki, and experts were taken from all over Africa. Their report stated that in 30 years, between 1980 and 2010, Sub-Sahara alone lost an estimate of $1.5 trillion from illicit financial flows. And the breakdown, quickly before I give to other members, is 65% of that money is corporate crimes. 30% is criminal, and 5% is direct African government corruption. So when we say IFFs, in essence, for us at APNIFFT currently, we are concentrating on the elephant or the lion in the room, which is that 65% corporate crimes. Because big business does not pay tax in Africa. It doesn't make sense that the state in Africa still raises more revenue out of pay-as-you-earn than from corporate tax. If they don't pay tax, why should we be taxing our people? Is the question we are asking. So they should pay tax because we can't evade tax as individuals.
Maybe you can chip in, Mheshimiwa, at that point.
Yes,
Talk
Mhesh.
about Kenyan situation. We are told that a lot of money is lost in sub-Saharan countries. How is the situation in the country?
Yes, thank you very much. And my name is Obara, and I'm a member of Parliament for Kabondo Kasipul constituency in Homa Bay County. We have launched this caucus today, and it's coming at a time when almost every single Kenyan is aware of what is happening in the tax system. We have just come through the finance bill. We've just come to discuss it in Parliament, and you've seen the uproar in the country on the taxes that were being introduced. It was like this was the first time they were hearing about the finance bill, and yet every single year there is a finance bill that looks at issues on what needs to be taxed to be able to generate revenues for this country. So why was there an uproar? There was an uproar because Kenyans felt that the taxes that were being introduced were not fair, particularly at a time when the country was going through a very difficult phase. So as a parliamentarian here today, we are saying that if we go back and even go to the KRA, with the increase of the taxes from 8% to 16% on fuel, with the increase on the taxes, with the 1.5% levy that was introduced and already recovered from employees, can KRA tell us that there was an increase in the generated revenue? The answer is no. In fact, the revenues have gone down. Why? Because it appears, as she has said, that there are institutions that are not paying taxes. Two, is this money helping Kenyans or improving the lives of the Kenyans? And you have seen Kenyans crying about the payslip, particularly those who are employed. They are crying about the payslips that has gone to beyond what is required by the Employment Act. And for the businesses, we have seen some of them shutting down. So it is a time for reflection, and Kenyans are fully aware of what is happening. And I'm sure when the conference comes on the 25th of October to the 26th of October, there will be so many Kenyans who want to know what is happening in Africa. Is it also happening in Africa as it is happening in Kenya? We've been told about the illicit financial flow. Yesterday, we saw the EACC talk about 80 billion that is lost every year from these taxes. And who is taking that 80 billion and where is it going? Not too far back, we were told about Cayman. Is it called Cayman? Cayman Islands. And we had minister and a former CEO who are being charged for going to keep money in that country. What is happening in Kenya? So Kenyans are alive and alert of what is happening. And I welcome you all to follow what is going to happen in this conference. Not forgetting what is happening in West Africa. Because of social media, today we are able to even know what was happening. Those agreements, those documents that they signed for their minerals and all those things. Today, Kenyans are aware of what is happening there, that 80% of the money was going to France, and they were only remaining with 20%. Are we going to sit back as parliamentarians and do nothing? It's about time that Africa should arise and do something so that all those services that are going to those other countries should come back to Africa to improve the lives of the citizens. Thank you very much.
Now, do you feel like there is need to have a policy framework that will ensure that if someone is employed or you're getting a salary, you have a pay slip, that there is a minimum and a maximum of what should be deducted from your salary? Because right now, with the taxes that are coming every day, you might get yourself, if you're employed, what you're taking home, it is maybe 20%, and 80% goes as tax. Do you feel that there is need for a policy framework to show where you cannot go beyond this to tax people?
But this is already there in the Employment Act. This was addressed even by the Federation of Kenya Employers, Madam Jackie Mugo. And she said it should not go beyond 2/3. It's there in the Employment Act. So back to the executive. We need to go back and see. We have those regulations in this country, and should make sure that they just implement them in the manner in which they should. But if there is a change in policy, then it should come back to Parliament for us to look at it again. Thank you.
So, Madam, I would like to ask, we have seen the introduction of paramilitary by the Kenya Revenue, Revenue Authority to collect taxes and be able to collect more money. What do you think about the paramilitary? Do you think it's going to be effective in collecting more money for the Kenya Revenue Authority, or is another form of corruption that is going to a pothole that is opened?
I think we need to give it the benefit of doubt. We need to give it the benefit of doubt and see in the next 3 months whether it's working or not. But at the moment, it has just started, so it's difficult to assess the effectiveness of that policy. Thank you.
Just about yourself. Let me introduce myself just quickly. My name is Roger Skiria, and I'm an economist, and I coordinate the parliamentary work, the African Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows. Currently, we are in 43 countries in Africa, and we have close to 1,000 active members of parliament. And the issue that we've been addressing that is also connected to what Mheshimiwa said is that there's been a push across the continent, people saying we need development. But now, over the years, the question has been, how do we propel this development? And we found out that increasingly, government have been looking for taxes, using taxes to develop. But then we realized that most of the time, the corporates, they don't pay taxes. So it ended up that now we find ourselves, not just in Kenya, but across the continent, that the burden is being transferred to the common mwananchi. Because the government has failed, or many governments are struggling to come up with legislative solutions on how best to tax the corporates so that we cannot have equity issues in terms of development. I'll just quickly look at that issue of, for example, the employment. Because we have problems in raising finances, because our resources are leaking, you find most of these multinational companies that we have in Kenya and East Africa, some of them have these tax incentives for 99 years, whereby they don't pay taxes. And because of that, you find that the burden of taxation is shifting to the people. That's why now you find government is struggling. KRA is coming up with ways of coming up with these police people who go and get taxation, because there is a debt issue. Government has to finance itself, but there's a problem in terms of how we collect taxes, and the people who are supposed to pay taxes are not paying taxes. That's why we've started this, launching these national caucuses, engaging members of parliament, because we are aware that corruption is budgeted, that the issue of taxation and wherever, the solution is in parliament. That's why we are building the capacity of members of parliament across the continent for them to understand and to question some of the issues. For example, on the tax incentives reviews, the issues of the tax and extractive industry in Kenya, for example, the titanium that we have, all these natural resources that we have, how are we being taxed? How are we taxing these multinational corporations? So that is what we are looking at, and we are willing to support our members, and we are happy to announce that we are bringing all these members of parliament, close to 1,000 of them, to Nairobi in October 25th and 26th for us to have a conference and discuss these issues even further. Thank you.
Your opinion.
Yes.
African countries, especially the trade countries, are trying to harmonize their taxes.
Yes.
For example, in EAC, there is talks around to harmonize the import duties and all that. I don't know, what's your opinion if that's the best way for our economy, because there are different levels?
Yes. So the issues of illicit financial flows, because most of the companies, when you check in your house, the soap that you use, the what you drink, whatever, are produced by multinationals. When you go to Uganda, the same multinationals, the same people. So what has been happening, we've been having this thing called race to the bottom, whereby companies, African countries, are giving these tax breaks and tax incentives to these multinationals, each of them competing. So in Kenya, we have, for example, 30%. For you to attract foreign direct investment, you reduce it to 25%. Uganda looks at you and say, okay, we want that company to come to Uganda, so they reduce it to 20%. At the end of the day, all of you lose. That's what is called the race to the bottom. That's why the issue of harmonization is good, so that we don't compete in terms of taxation, which we should be receiving those resources to develop our countries. We should be competing on other factors of production.
Maybe when you'll be discussing having a summit, there's this talks about the global digital tax.
Yes.
So far, I'm aware of just 4 countries.
Yes.
Who have not signed it up, Kenya being among them. I don't know as parliamentarians, what's your view on the global?
So the issue of global tax is something that we are pushing also as an organization, Tax Justice Network Africa. We understand that there is a need for us to harmonize. There is a need for us to harmonize the digital taxation, and the fact that we have some countries in Africa who are being affected. For example, Nigeria has been the leader in this discussion. Kenya has not, because there are some issues. It's the same issues on how best to tax the digital platform. It's still a quandary, it's still something that we are investing a lot in terms of researchers, and I will invite members of the press and even Kenyans, and also we are sharing with legislators some of the best practices that we see globally, because there is need for us to do those global digital taxation. Yes. Asanteni sana. Asanteni.